Good morning. This is Northern Light for Tuesday, April 18th. I'm Monica Sandreski.
And I'm Todd Moe.
Lake Luzerne and Warren County is debating whether to have a drag story hour for kids at their public library. Some locals have said drag queens are trying to recruit.
Drag queens said this is our culture, and we're not trying to recruit anybody, but then we will offer some comfort and reassurance and solace to kids who are different, who may be trans, who may be questioning.
More on that story coming up.
The nomination process for Governor Hochul's choice for chief judge is going more smoothly the second time around. Also, we'll check in with Nature Up North and their focus on protecting biodiversity.
It's easy to step outside and look at the beauty of a trillium or listen to a chickadee that's singing behind us right now and be reminded about what is still here and that we have a role to play.
They have an Earth Day 7K coming up this weekend. All of that and more is just ahead on Northern Light. Stick with us.
Broadcast of Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio is supported by Adirondack Foundation and the Adirondack Birth to Three Alliance, dedicated to providing all children the best possible start in life, AdirondackBT3.org, and Citizen Advocates, offering the North Country mental health, addiction, and housing services, plus crisis care, job training, and more. citizenadvocates.net/124.
This is Northern Light. I'm Monica Sandreski.
And I'm Todd Moe. A children's reading event has brought the culture wars over LGBTQ expression to the Adirondacks. The library in Lake Luzerne in Warren County had planned to host a drag queen story hour last Saturday, but locals pushed back, describing the event as dangerous and deviant. The event was ultimately postponed and hasn't been rescheduled. Steve Barnes is one of the reporters from the Albany Times-Union who's been covering the issue, and he spoke with our reporter, Emily Russell.
So, Steve, the Drag Queen Story Hour was supposed to happen in Lake Luzerne last Saturday. What were folks saying in support of that event, and why did the library want to put the event on?
Well, story hours were a regular thing at that library, as at many libraries, and the idea of a drag queen story hour started nationwide as a movement only in about 2015. And the idea was to have a drag queen, a man dressed who performs in drag, but who dresses up in usually an elaborate costume, read a book. And the books were always about inclusivity and diversity. One of the ones that was going to be read was about a crayon that has the wrong label on it. It's about promoting diversity and showing kids that, particularly in smaller communities that might not have as wide a variety of neighbors, that there's it's a big wide world out there. And so the library had a staff member who just completely coincidentally has since moved on, but months ago proposed this and found a drag queen who goes by the name of Sagamore. And Sagamore was going to come in and do the reading. And they announced this about a week before. And then coincidentally, the library had a meeting about something else entirely, but word had gotten around in the community. And so the meeting was taken over by about more than 40 people demanding to speak about the Drag Queen Story Hour, and 7 in defense of it. And all of this reporting was done by my colleague, Kathleen Moore. She got wind of the meeting, and she went to the meeting and wrote the initial Times-Union coverage of it.
What were people saying against the event, both online and then at the meeting? What were their concerns?
Well, what's happened here, the larger context is necessary to know that nationwide, the anti-drag laws are being proposed. They have been passed, but are also being proposed in more than 14 states. And it's part of a much larger national conversation about trans rights. And so there are some very effective conservative political agitators who, using the very same language, spread the news to different communities where this comes up. And they create fear among communities And people say the same things over and over again. They say they're trying to recruit children. They're trying to groom children. We have to protect our children. One of the people quoted at the meeting by my colleague said that this is trying to normalize drag queens, and that's deviant behavior.
So you talked to experts about pushback against drag events and kind of compared that pushback to how portrayals of men dressed as women and vice versa is more accepted. What did you hear from experts about that?
Well, drag has been on TV and accessible to children, certainly. Milton Berle, who was a very famous comedian in the middle part of the 20th century, was known as Uncle Milty, for heaven's sake. And Uncle Milty was in drag all the time on his TV show in the 1950s. I grew up watching afternoon reruns of MASH, and one of the characters, Klinger, was, if not in drag, he was at least cross-dressing. He was trying to get out of military service. And so it's been out there and available. But the difference for that, and also whether it was Jackie Gleason or Bob Hope, is that all of those guys were understood to be straight men. The joke was that they were straight men and they were dressing up as women, and everybody got the joke. But drag now is seen as part of queer culture. And that is the difference. And as one of the experts said, queer culture is threatening because people in drag shows are perceived to be not straight.
You and your colleague Kathleen Moore also talked to drag queens in the area. What did they say about, their performances and the art and their culture?
On the one hand, they've always felt somewhat under attack because it has always been considered suspicious when it's part, again, of queer culture. And drag, mind you, goes back millennia. Men were dressed as women in Greek and in Roman, and Shakespeare is full of it. And so drag queens said, this is our culture. And, we're not trying to recruit anybody. We're trying to promote diversity and inclusion and acceptance among kids who are comfortable with their gender identity. We're not going to threaten them at all, but then we will offer some comfort and reassurance and solace to kids who are different, who may be trans, who may be questioning.
That was Steve Barnes, a reporter from the Albany Times-Union, speaking with Emily Russell. The library board in Lake Luzerne voted last week to postpone the Drag Queen Story Hour, though it's unclear if the event will be rescheduled.
You're listening to Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio. It's 8 minutes past 8. Good morning. I'm Todd Moe.
And I'm Monica Sandreski. Just ahead, we'll check in with Nature Up North on their 10th anniversary. That conversation and a walk outside is coming up in just a few minutes right here on Northern Light.
Music by Colton guitarist Paul Myers, and his music is part of the Underscore project here at North Country Public Radio. You can check it out online, ncpr.org/underscore. And Paul Myers has a concert coming up at the Edwards Opera House on May 20th with his World on a String trio. Some great music featuring guitarist Paul Myers and his string trio. May 20th at the Edwards Opera House. Northern Light is supported by St. Lawrence Health, committed to keeping the community healthy and safe by providing vaccines for patients to strengthen their defenses. StLawrenceHealthSystem.org. And Long Run Wealth, an SEC-registered investment advisor in Lake Placid, providing comprehensive wealth management, retirement, and financial planning solutions. LongRunWealth.com.
Governor Kathy Hochul's second attempt to approve the next chief judge for New York is having more success. Senate Democrats who lead the Judiciary Committee voted Monday to confirm Rowan Wilson to be the new leader of the Court of Appeals, the state's highest court. But as Karen DeWitt reports, Wilson's decision in a rape case raised some questions from Republicans and some Democrats.
Rowan Wilson, already an associate judge on the High Court, is known for his opinions protecting workers, victims of gun violence, and the rights of criminal defendants.
I'm extremely both grateful and humbled by the governor's nomination.
If Wilson is confirmed by the full Senate as expected, he would become the state's first African-American chief judge. He's backed by the state's leading labor unions and progressive criminal justice rights advocates who describe him as a champion of marginalized people in society. Senate Judiciary Committee Chair Brad Hoylman-Siegel, who voted for Wilson, says judicial nominees must be held to a higher standard in the light of recent U.S. Supreme Court decisions that overturned key rights.
The United States Supreme Court and federal judges across the country have rolled back long-standing precedent protecting reproductive health, environment, immigration, gun violence, prevention, workers' protections, and the right to vote.
Democratic senators voted down Governor Hochul's first choice for the job, Hector LaSalle, because they believed his rulings on labor union rights and abortion rights showed him to be too conservative and would continue the High Court's trend toward a more right-leaning direction. But some senators questioned during Monday's confirmation hearing whether Wilson's support of defendants' rights went too far in one case. In People v. Regan, Wilson overturned a rape conviction and allowed Andrew Regan to be released from a 12-year prison term that he was serving after the prosecutor in the case delayed obtaining DNA evidence from Regan before the trial began. The ruling in March angered the victim and led the National Organization for Women to ask that Wilson not be confirmed. Wilson told the senators that while the decision was painful to write, he felt he had to follow the law and past precedent of other legal decisions.
And it's a horrible feeling to have to reverse a conviction in that circumstance.
The case drew the most questions during the hearing from senators, including the ranking Republican on the Senate Judiciary Committee, Anthony Palumbo. He said he didn't see anything in the case law that would call for the dismissal of Regan's conviction. Senator Patricia Canzaneri Fitzpatrick, also a Republican, read from a dissenting opinion by Court of Appeals Judge Madeline Singas.
The result is a stunning nullification of a jury's first-degree rape conviction and the reinforcement of the bleak history of the treatment of sexual assault victims.
Wilson says while the victim followed the proper procedures for reporting the crime, prosecutors failed to collect key evidence in a timely manner.
She did everything right. What she did not deserve was the treatment at the hands of the district attorney.
Several Democratic senators in their questioning seemed to agree with Wilson that it was the prosecutor's fault that the case had to be overturned. Senate Republican Minority Leader Robert Ortt, speaking after the hearing, accused Democrats of hypocrisy. He says the Democrats were far more critical of LaSalle's rulings than they were of Wilson's decision in the Regan case.
But apparently, what's not a disqualifier is letting a convicted rapist having that conviction overturned.
Ortt accused Democrats of being more interested in installing a judge that could help them win a potential future redistricting dispute, something that Democrats deny. Wilson, in his 6 years on the court as an associate judge, wrote a number of dissenting opinions. He sided with Senate Democrats against the court's majority in a 2022 decision on redistricting. The court's majority struck down the Democrats' redrawing of the new lines and ordered them redrawn by a special master. The results led to Republicans flipping 4 seats in blue New York. A full vote on Wilson's nomination on the Senate floor is expected as early as Tuesday. In Albany, I'm Karen DeWitt.
Forest rangers and other emergency responders have been fighting nearly 20 wildfires around New York State in recent days. There have been blazes in the capital region, out in western New York, as well as in Rockland and Orange counties north of the city, burning more than 400 acres statewide. One elementary school in Orange County stayed closed yesterday due to smoke conditions. There's a statewide burn ban in effect through May 14th. Illegal burning yard debris is the leading cause of spring wildfires in New York.
New York's tax collections were better than expected last year, but they still fell short of last year. They were better than expected this year, but they still fell short of last year. Controller Tom DiNapoli says collections totaled nearly $112 billion this fiscal year, with about half of that total coming from income tax. Overall, they were nearly $3 billion ahead of state projections, but $9.5 billion lower than the previous year. Napoli says the decline was largely due to a decrease in personal income tax collections as a result of the pandemic. Business tax receipts increased nearly 25% to $20 billion, and consumption and use tax income was up nearly 5% to almost $30 billion.
Lewis County is trying to boost its economy by transforming vacant commercial properties into economic assets. The Vacant Property Improvement Program is an $800,000 grant program geared towards reducing blight in villages and towns. According to the Watertown Daily Times, 10 property owners applied last week for matching grant money. The aim of the program is to turn abandoned commercial properties into new businesses and residential housing. The county is vetting applications from business owners in and around Lewis County, including in Croghan, Lowville, and Port Leyden. You're listening to Northern Lights right here on North Country Public Radio. I'm Todd Moe.
And I'm Monica Sandreski. In just a minute, 10 years of exploring wild things and places in the North Country. Then stick with NCPR after the show for Bird Note from the South China Sea to the Gulf of Mexico. It's spring migration across the globe. More on that just ahead at 8:42. But first, Todd has a look at the weather.
Clouds and scattered rain showers today. Winds out of the southwest 10 to 15 miles per hour and highs in the upper 40s near 50. Maybe what the Weather Service calls a light wintry mix overnight tonight. Temperatures dropping to near 30. Might see some rain and sleet overnight tonight. Tomorrow, clouds, highs near 50. Thursday, partly cloudy, a high near 60. And then a slight chance of some scattered showers starting on Friday, continuing through the weekend. Milder on Friday, highs in the 60s, near 70 in the afternoon. Right now, clouds and 39 degrees here in Canton.
An organization in Canton that has trained St. Lawrence University students, launched citizen science projects, and connected a lot of nature lovers in the North Country to each other and the environment, celebrates its 10th anniversary this year. As Nature Up North enters a new decade, its founders are hoping to build more connections with people, schools, and local libraries. One initiative this year will be a trail camera lending program to give people a chance to learn more about nature and wildlife near their own homes. Nature Up North doesn't have a building or office, but relies on its website as a portal and social media to connect with the community. Most of the time, events are held outdoors and often include campfire gatherings, citizen science projects, and lectures.
Last week, I went for a walk with Nature Up North's director, Erica Barthelmess, and project manager, Kayla Edmonds, on the Kip Trail along the edge of the St. Lawrence University campus to talk about the importance of exploring and appreciating the outdoors. The sky is clear, and we're surrounded by bird song in the trees, trillium and trout lilies at our feet. So you're looking at the trillium?
The bud on the trillium. The trout lily just leaves.
So, Kayla, I'm sorry, you were looking at something.
Yeah, there's a little bird at the top of this, dead tree straight ahead on the left side. Oh, and there's a bird right there. There's a nuthatch. A white-breasted guy on the left side of one of these red pines. That's a nuthatch, too, calling in the distance, but it's hard to stay focused when there's so many things going on.
So I've been teaching biology at St. Lawrence University since 1999, and I've taught conservation biology almost every year since that time. And in regular conversations with the students in that class, when we're talking about all of these problems that the world is faced with, we talked about, well, if people don't care, how are we going to change things? And so at some point, with some colleagues, I just thought I need to put my money where my mouth is and do something to try to help people connect and care. And because the data are horrible about how much more time people spend on their phones and watching videos and not being connected to nature. And so we launched Nature Up North with the intention to help reconnect people with nature in the North Country. And so we have less of a focus on just environmental recreation and a little more on environmental education and actually understanding how you fit into the environment around you. So that's what got us going. And at the time, the reason we kind of count this as our 10th year anniversary is it's 10 years ago that our webpage launched. And that's where we have the webpage as basically a platform for sharing information about the environment. That's where we host. We have a podcast series called Naturally Speaking, and that's where you can find all the podcast episodes. And there's information. We run a couple of citizen science projects. There's information about those projects, as well as a series of blogs and articles that are written by community members and St. Lawrence students and staff, all about just various aspects of the North Country environment. So it's like the what we call it, the portal, I guess, for getting access. And then we run a summer program that Kayla is completely in charge of with a bunch of student interns, and do a lot of in-person programming during the summer when it's easier weather to get people outside.
What have been some of the challenges, I guess, and some of the joys, and how do you sort of mark 10 years, and do you continue to go forth with that initial mission of the organization?
Yeah, I don't think our mission has changed very much in terms of just wanting, and in fact, it feels more important now, maybe 10 years later, I think, rather than less important. In terms of, how we're marking it, we've got a whole bunch of events planned for sort of starting on Earth Day and running for about that next month. Challenges, certainly COVID was a challenge. And then, we have the same challenges anybody else has: a small staff, not enough money,
marketing,
right? All of those kinds of things. But it just seems to work. And this year we started a new collaboration with the Norwood-Norfolk Central School as part of their after-school programming, where we go out one day a week and do environmental ed exercises with the kids, which they love and we love. So, small steps of expansion. I think we'll get back to running. We have had, up until COVID, every summer a teacher workshop where we brought teachers in for a couple of days to the St. Lawrence campus and talk with them about place-based environmental learning and ask questions like, you're teaching the metric system and how to measure in centimeters, and you're having the kids measure their lab benches, but what if they went outside and measured a maple tree and learned how to identify the maple tree, and then when they walk home from school and they recognize the maple tree? And, I think these are pieces of information that maybe a generation or two ago folks had because of how they grew up. And now we've stepped away from just some of that basic familiarity with who we share the landscape with, and how they function and what stories they have to tell us.
Kayla, let me ask, is part of the goal here too to kind of you're based at St. Lawrence, but you really want the public to know about this group, and you're really sort of opening things up to, yes, biology teachers and high school students in the North Country, but you'd love to see the public really kind of take advantage of this, right?
We do emphasize that we are for the community, and although we're based at SLU and we host SLU students as our interns and we collaborate with many different people at the university, we really want to be recognized as an organization that hosts programs and events for everybody and is willing to and wants to collaborate with other organizations in the community that have similar kind of environmentally driven missions and goals. And we want to be reaching out with and collaborating with the local schools, as Erica is saying. And so we really are for the community, for anybody who calls the North Country their home.
I mean, do you feel like people understand who you are and what you're doing? And is that one of the challenges too, though? Or because you've got the Wild Center and the Nicandria Nature Center, and
I feel like people get it and they get us. I think one niche that we try to fill that is different than, say, Nicandria or the Wild Center is that we don't have a physical location that you come to. And we also so far, knock wood, have been able to keep all of our programming free for the public because we recognize the socioeconomic conditions that a lot of North Country folks face. And it costs money. It costs gas money to drive to the Wild Center for the day, or you have to take a day off, or, whatever. It's a whole day adventure. And I love that they're there, and I think the work they do is essential. And I also think there's room for the sort of work that we do. And then having the website, I think, is just a gem. We didn't mention that sort of our most entry level, you could think of it as a citizen science project if you want to, but you don't have to. We have the ability for folks to post an encounter. What the website enables us to do is you post a picture and you can write some text about what you were doing and the date, and drop a pin about where that activity occurred. And there's now this amazing map to look at. So if you go to natureupnorth.org, our website, you can look at the encounter map, and there's thousands of pins that have been dropped by folks all over the North Country of just cool things that they've seen and experienced. And in another 10 years or 20 years, we'll be able to look back. And then the only other thing I would say is, we were at this conference yesterday, and I was reminded of a statistic that I try not to think about, which, if I have right, it's that in North America in the last 50 years, there's been a 60% decline in wildlife abundance. I think we forget sometimes the urgency. We hear lots about climate change, and climate change is absolutely important. And there's another big issue that the Earth faces right now, and that's biodiversity loss. And it may seem too simplistic, but if people don't get out, if they don't care, if they don't engage, what's going to make you write the check to the NGO that needs your support to protect wildlife habitat, or vote for the candidate who is actually going to do something about climate change? It's easy to desensitize ourselves. There's lots of horrible stuff going on in the world right now, but it's also easy to step outside and look at the beauty of a trillium, or listen to a spring peeper, or the chickadee that's singing behind us right now, and be reminded about what is still here, and that we have a role to play in helping to make sure it's here for future generations, and for these critters who also live here with us, and for whom this is also home.
Kayla, anything you want to add, or any kind of closing thoughts?
Just follow us on our Instagram and our Facebook, on our social medias, because that is one of the best ways to kind of stay updated on what we're doing, and that is just at Nature Up North. And so that's where you can see what events we have going on, when the game cameras will be ready to check out of the library, pictures that people have shared on our website that we then share on social media. So if you don't already follow us, that'll be my last little plug. So.
Cool. Perfect.
Well, congrats on 10 years.
Yeah, thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
And thanks for coming on a walk in the woods with us.
Nature Up North's director, Erica Barthelmess, and project manager Kayla Edmonds on the Kip Trail on the edge of the St. Lawrence University campus. As part of the group's 10th anniversary celebration events this year, you're invited to Saturday's Earth Day 7K trail run and walk. Check-in and day of registration opens at 8 a.m. on Saturday morning, and you'll find more information on their website at natureupnorth.org. It is coming up on 29 minutes past 8, and you're listening to Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio, supported by Guideboat Realty, located in Saranac Lake, where health, history, and the arts meet in the Adirondacks. Your guide to Adirondack real estate, guideboatrealty.com. Cloudy skies, highs in the 40s, near 50 today, winds out of the southwest, partly cloudy tomorrow. But Monica Sandreski, it's going to get milder as the week progresses. You're going to want to step outside, probably like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Earth Day.
Wonderful. I can't wait. So many wonderful events going on throughout the community about Earth Day, including Nature Up North's 7K, of course. Many more going on throughout the region. You can find out more at our website, ncpr.org/calendar. That's it for the show for the day. Morning Edition continues in just a minute. Coming up in about 15 minutes, a story on the Colorado River. A stretch of that river that flows to the Grand Canyon National Park is listed as the most endangered river in the country. Climate change has a lot to do with why. We'll get more context coming up at 8:45. I'm Monica Sandreski.
I'm Todd Moe. Thanks so much for listening. Be well.